Well everyone, in a strange turn of events, I decided that using some of the gift cards I received for my birthday from ABC Shop, I'd purchased the last remaining Cyberman Conversion Chamber set, part of the original character building wave, for the Doctor Who line. Now, this cost me $70 in Australia, which, as to be expected, is probably outrageously more than you would find in any other country in the world. And this is without any discounts or savings. That's just the normal price for this, which was slightly less than the equivalent Dalek Factory, which I have actually ordered from eBay and should be arriving soon, so there'll be a review of that when it turns up. And that retailed for about $80 to $90 when it was in shops. So we can see that, now I know what this means, there's 232 pieces inside of this set, and it's a very interesting set that contains both this spaceman and a single Cyberman. Now if we turn it over, it's a very typical character building design with the sideways writing, some explanations of the features. There you go, Space Captain is what it's called. And you know, your typical kind of painting and designs from your character building sets. So let's have a go and have a look, and I'll see if I can get a build of this up and running. So, stay tuned. Well, as you can see, I've only gotten this far in the amount of time you've seen me doing this, so I'm actually going to have to come back because my memory card is actually full at the moment. So we'll just come back to that in a moment, but I have to say, so far, I'm actually really impressed with some of the stuff that's going on in this, much more so than I was with the TARDIS, which is another first generation set. So, be right back. Is the finished Cyberman conversion chamber set. Now, it's got quite a lot of neat designs, I must say. Like, it's much smaller, definitely, than I thought it would be. But for its size, it's got some very interesting building techniques, and they've also used some pieces in some really interesting ways, and I think it's very important to highlight. Now, if we start from here, first of all, we can see that this attachment here swivels around on a, not only a 180-degree pivot, but also on a pivot like so. As you can see, that part does come off, but that's the problem easily solved. But what I actually think is even cooler is this mechanism here, which is a lift. And you're probably going, now how does this work? Well, we can see that there's actually pieces used that wrap around this construction pylon here, that if we just tighten them up a little bit, mean that we can actually have a elevator piece that will stay fixed at the top, but also will stay fixed halfway and all the way down to the bottom. And this is definitely a very cool building design, as in rather than using another method of making a lift, you've actually got pieces used to create enough friction to hold this lift up like so. And I really think that's a very cool feature of this set. Now, moving past this, which as you can see is in reaching of the table, we can have this device thing, whatever this, I'm not exactly sure what this is meant to be, but it's obviously some kind of conversion device. Now, this one is again mounted on a 360-degree pivot. However, this cable means that it's kind of, not only does it spring back to its main position, but it's limited to this range of movement. So if you just did connect this cable like so, you can easily get more movement out of this thing like that. So I think it's actually quite a cool little design, and I think that really looks like some kind of brain or something. However, that's not all in this set, ladies and gentlemen. We can see that not only do we have this, which I'll just move out of the way like so, we've also got this table. Now, in case you haven't noticed, the character building, unlike Lego figures, don't have the studs on the back of their legs. So character building's come up with an interesting way here to make sure that they stay on this table. And so these little claws come out like so. We can place our figure onto the set, and we wrap them around like that, and he doesn't move. And so this table is also on a 360-degree pivot, and also has a pivot here. So it's very movable and very posable, and you can do some really interesting things with that board. I really approve the way they did that. What you can also do here is close up, so in the final stages of the Cyberman conversion, everything closes up, and that's where all the magic happens. And so this is a very cool feature as well. You've got the playability of the opening hatches to reveal your Cyberman inside. Now, moving on, we can see that there's some really cool parts here. These are like engine radiator parts. I'll just break one off so you can have a look. You can see that they're 2x2 bricks with an engine detailing on the top, and I think that's a really cool kind of piece design. And it really, I'm not exactly sure what it's meant to represent, but it looks very cool. In fact, I must say, I'm not exactly sure where the ice theme came from for the Cyberman. As you can see, we've got this ice around here, we've got a couple of ice pieces on the back, and there's a blue highlights, and I don't know really where that came from. The only thing I can think of is that Cybermen's mouths are blue in the new series. But I think it works. I think it's got a very nice contrast to the dark gunmetal greys and the blacks and the silvers of the rest of the set. So I really like that design choice. Now if we come down further here, we can see that we've got this little hood, and we've got all these cylinders and pipes. Cleverly, character builders actually use these plate designs here, which are often, used to change the bricks, just as is, to look kind of like exhaust pipes or engines. And these obviously are cylinders for transporting something. So that's once again, a very cool, like, industrial kind of feel. Now again, we've got more of these parts used as a back. Some interesting slope pieces here. These are actually single pieces that, if I can take some off, you can see are actually got a little bit of a slope on them. So they're quite interesting pieces. And what's really cool is the seat in here for the Cyberman controller person. And we can see that again, because character building doesn't use, just get it out. Because character building doesn't use studs on the back of the legs of their figures to keep them more realistic. Oh, having difficulty getting this one out. There you go. We can see that instead, they've got a seat with a divider in the middle. And what this means is if we get our Cyberman here, and we sit him down in the seat, the friction, as you can see, it's quite a bit of friction. The friction between the legs actually holds them into the seat quite well. I think that's a very effective way of giving these character building figures seats, so that they're not quite as secure as Lego ones, but I mean, I'm shaking this around pretty hard and he's not coming out. So it would have been nice to see one of these seats on the seat that's in the TARDIS rather than the built one that means you can't actually have any figures in there. So that's a very cool little innovation. I'll put that back later. So as you can see, there's actually quite a bit going on in this set, and there's some really interesting pieces that are very like character building. You start seeing a recurring theme with the pieces, but I think it's also very cool. And I think overall, a lot of this set's actually really good. However, it doesn't mean I don't have a couple of issues with it. Before I talk about what's wrong with it, I realise I haven't actually had a proper look at this figurine, the Space Commander. So if we just spin this around so I've got the light in a better position, we can see here that he's actually quite an interesting figure. Now, as far as I can tell, he's one of the very few non-specific characters we've had from character building so far. I mean, we've had characters like the Roman Centurion, but apart from that, we haven't really had any human characters, and I think that's something that this series really needs. In the same way that Hero Factory doesn't have any normal robots. We've only ever got the villains and the heroes, whereas Bionicle would often have, you know, villagers or animals or something as well. And I think that it makes it a lot harder for people who want to make their own stories with character building to have, you know, bystanders in their stories, because it looks very incongruous if you use Lego figures because of the difference in size and difference in scale and everything. And so I think character building would really benefit from releasing just some, you know, people figures. And I know that they've got them in their army sets, but they are not available easily in Australia. So it'd be really good to see some normal figures, and I think this is a really cool one. I think there's a lot you can do with a space captain of, you know, unnamed origin, and he's quite a nice figure. His face isn't like something we've really seen before. Again, he's got the stylistic eyes and the character building big eyebrows and the whole like mouth chin thing. I think it actually works on him more than it does on, say, the 10th Doctor. But I still think there needs to be more difference between the mouth and the chin, because to be honest, it looks like to me he has a moustache. I don't think he's supposed to have a moustache. But if his mouth was a little bit higher up and his chin a little bit lower down, it would look more like a mouth and a chin. But I don't really see that as a problem. Now, he's got a little badge here, and you probably can't really see it. It's got some like little star or something on it. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but quite a good figure in the fact that it's finally, you know, a normal figure who can be, you know, captured by the Daleks or the Cybermen or the Silurians or something. And so adds a little bit of normality. Now, the Cyberman figure you get, he's just your ordinary Cyberman figure. He's one of the Cybus designs, not one of the newer, as we can see if we look at, say, hang on, tangle in first. Say in some of the later Cybermen, you can see that they don't actually have the Cybus logo, they've just got the chest plate. So this is a Cybus Cyberman, so from the parallel universe, but to be honest, I don't think that really matters that much. However, again, I think the lack of Cybermen is a bit of an issue. But so that's a quick look at the figures. You can see my other reviews if you want a closer look at the Cybermen, but I think the Cybermen are some of the really good figures from the character building line. So what's wrong with this set? Well, first of all, as I think about the Dalek set, which I have actually finished and the review will be up soon, I just don't think you can have a Cyberman conversion chamber set and have one Cyberman. That kind of feels like a rip-off to me. It feels a little bit like back in the Thunderbirds days when you'd buy Thunderbirds Tracy Island, which didn't come with any Thunderbirds. So I think that character building really could have included more than one Cyberman. I think a minimum of two, so at least you can have one controlling and one that comes out the other end once you finish converting your Spaceman. That aside, I think, yeah, this is actually quite a solid set, especially on character building grounds. Like, it's very solid. There's not a lot of pieces that want to fall off very easily, which is good. I think that they've done quite a few good things with the design here. There's some really interesting shapes and really interesting colours. I don't know where the snow and ice thing came from, as I already said, but I don't really mind. I think that works. You get these really cool tools. So, as you see on here, we've got a... I'll remember what this is in a minute. You got a pair of pliers. Oh, so you can see there that's come loose, but that's because I've been jigging it around a little bit. You've got a screwdriver, or a wrench. There you go, I remember what it is now. And on this side, we've got a hammer. So you get some interesting tools, which are something always good to add to your arsenal of character accessories. You never know. There's some really interesting pieces in here, especially if you're interested in rebuilding this into your own kind of chamber. So there's some really cool character building parts. I think a lot of the parts have been quite good. I haven't had some of the problems which we've had in the past of like inconsistent pieces. However, there were still a couple of discrepancies between this and the box. So if we have a look at the box, first of all, we don't get any of these little cylinder things, which are listed quite prominently on the box, but they're not in the final set. Which doesn't really worry me, but also just confuses me why the character building keeps doing this. We've got things like this having a smooth pit there, but if we actually have a look at that part on the underside, there's no piece there. We've got things like this having one stud. On the box it's got two studs. We've got this whole bit here, which is vastly different. If we look at the construction here, we've got the gentle slope with the screwdriver. Whereas here, we have a very much more pronounced slope with a screwdriver here and smooth on the top there. And, you know, if you go, well, why does it matter? Well, to be honest, it doesn't really matter, and it doesn't really worry me that they changed the design. However, I don't think it's fair of character building. You can see up here, like, what is that supposed to be? That's like part of this, but it doesn't really look like that in the set. Anyway, I don't have a problem with character building including or taking parts out, but I think that they really should put a little bit more effort into making sure that the designs that are on the box are the ones that you get in the packet. Because I know a lot of the time, especially this is seen in the Dalek factory, the differences and the TARDIS, the differences can actually be quite obvious. For example, here, look, we can see there's a whole different colour change and whole different pieces used here. Whereas here we've got like a black and a silver, whereas this part is a grey and a silver. And we've got these extra pieces on top of here, which don't exist on the actual set. And so I think that's one thing that character building really needs to lift their game on. Over all the other small little problems I've had with this set, the main thing is consistency. And I think that's really important when you're trying to build a brand, is to be consistent. That's something that LEGO can do really well. So you don't get dodgy parts. So you don't get parts that don't fit together. So that you don't get inconsistencies. But apart from that, I think it's alright. It's got the same kind of instructions as the other sets, which I've already talked about and how they're not great, but I survived in this set. And thankfully there were no stickers, and that was good, because I don't like stickers. And in case you haven't already established that. So overall, would I recommend this set? So do I recommend the Cyberman conversion chamber? I actually have to say, surprisingly, yes. When I bought it, I kind of just bought it out on a whim, because I'd seen it sitting at the shop for months and months and months. No one had bought it. And I had this ABC gift card, and I said, you know what? Why don't we buy it and see what happens? And I have to say, I'm actually really happy with how it turned out. I think that it's a good piece of Cyberman infrastructure, seeing that there's a lot of emphasis on the Daleks in the new series compared to the Cybermen. And I think that it's got some really interesting parts, really interesting design, and quite a bit of playability. I think the cost is more manageable than other sets, and from what I can tell is far more reasonable in other countries, just not Australia. And I think that you get some nice, interesting parts, and as I said, I think that having the Space Commander is really cool. So overall, I would say I would recommend this set to anyone who's a fan of collecting the Cybermen or of these character building sets, because it's definitely one of their better ones from the first wave, and even one of the better ones overall, I think. Much more stable than, say, the the Silent Time Machine spaceship. And so, that's all I've got time for. Please post any questions or comments you have. Don't forget to watch Mouth and Who if you're interested in these kind of things, because that's obviously a crossover between Thomas, Trains, and Doctor Who. And stay tuned for more updates. And thanks for watching. Bye for now. And that's all I've got time for from TrainzXtreme.